Welcome. I'm Magnus, and I bring you horror stories to help you relax, or maybe to keep you up at night. Tell us where you're from. Are there spooky forests nearby? If you're a fan of scary stories, subscribe and drop a like. Get cozy, and let's begin. My name is Thaddeus Mercer, 37 years old, and I never thought I'd end up living in a cabin tucked away in the dense forests of southeastern Ohio. After burning out from my advertising career in Columbus, the idea of disconnecting from the world seemed like salvation. 6 months ago, I purchased this rustic property near Hocking Hills, 5 acres of woodland with a sturdy log cabin that needed some work but offered the solitude I craved. My sister Elaine thought I was having a midlife crisis. Maybe she was right. The first month was exactly what I needed. Quiet mornings with coffee on the porch, watching deer graze at the edge of my clearing, the therapeutic rhythm of chopping wood. I'd stocked up well. A generator, 6 months of non-perishables, and enough books to last me through winter. Cell service was spotty at best, which was precisely the point. My only neighbor was Wesley, an older man who lived about a mile down the dirt road. He'd stop by occasionally, offering fresh vegetables from his garden or advice about the local wildlife. Last night, I woke to the sound of my wind chimes clanging violently against each other. Strange, since the air was dead still. When I went to investigate, I found footprints in the soft earth beneath my kitchen window. Not animal tracks, but human. Someone had been standing there, watching me. I told myself it was probably just Wesley checking on me, though something about those prints seemed off. They were too small to be his, and why would he come at night without announcing himself? This morning, the isolation that had seemed so appealing suddenly felt suffocating. The forest that surrounded my cabin, once peaceful, now seemed to conceal threats in its shadows. I tried calling Elaine on my satellite phone, but the connection kept dropping. I considered driving into town, but my truck had been making concerning noises lately, and the thought of being stranded on those remote roads sent a chill down my spine. I spent the day reinforcing my doors and windows, finding new meaning in the heavy deadbolts the previous owner had installed. As I worked, I noticed strange markings carved into the trees at the edge of my property, symbols I didn't recognize, primitive looking, almost like some kind of alphabet. I remembered Wesley mentioning something about forest people when I first moved in. I'd laughed it off as local folklore, but now I wasn't so sure. When dusk arrived, I noticed a flickering light through the trees, about half a mile from my cabin. It looked like a campfire, but who would be camping on my property? I grabbed my binoculars, but could only make out shadowy figures moving around the flame. 3, maybe 4 people. They weren't hikers. They moved too deliberately, too silently. They seemed to be performing some kind of ritual, passing objects between them that I couldn't identify. As night fell completely, I locked myself inside, shotgun across my lap. The rational part of my brain told me they were probably just kids from town, looking for a place to party away from prying eyes. But why my property? And why those markings on the trees? The woods had fallen unnaturally silent. No crickets, no owls, nothing but the occasional crack of a branch that sent my heart racing. Around midnight, I heard it, a soft knock at my door. Then another, not urgent or threatening, but measured, deliberate. I froze in my chair, barely breathing. The knocking continued, perfectly spaced, almost mechanical in its rhythm. I thought about calling out, asking who was there, but something primal kept me silent. After what felt like hours, it stopped. I crept to the window and peered through a crack in the curtains. Standing in my yard was a figure, unnaturally still, face hidden beneath a crude mask made from what looked like tree bark. When I blinked, the figure was gone. Had I imagined it? The exhaustion, the isolation, my overactive writer's imagination, all reasonable explanations. But then my satellite phone rang, startling me so badly I nearly dropped my shotgun. The screen showed Elaine's number, but when I answered, the only sound was breathing, followed by a voice that was definitely not my sister's. "We've been waiting for you, Thaddeus," it whispered. "It's time to come home." The line went dead. I spent the rest of the night with my back against the wall, watching the door, wondering what exactly I had gotten myself into. Morning came after a sleepless night, sunlight filtering through the trees doing little to ease my nerves. I'd convinced myself that exhaustion had made me paranoid, until I stepped outside. The dirt around my cabin was covered in footprints, dozens of them, circling the entire perimeter. Some were barefoot, others in shoes, but all had walked in perfect circles around my home while I'd huddled inside. I fumbled with my phone, trying to capture photos of the prints, but the screen kept glitching, showing only distorted images. Wesley's truck rumbled up my driveway around noon, the familiar sound momentarily comforting. His weathered face looked concerned as he surveyed my haggard appearance. "You look like hell, Thaddeus," he said, handing me a jar of homemade preserves. When I told him about the footprints and the masked figure, his expression darkened. "We don't talk about them much," he muttered, eyes scanning the tree line. "Been here longer than any of us. Usually they keep to themselves, but when they take an interest in someone..." He trailed off, refusing to elaborate further. I wanted to dismiss Wesley's cryptic warning, but the evidence was literally on my doorstep. The strangest part was how methodical it all seemed. This wasn't random vandalism or teenagers looking to scare the new guy. These people, whoever they were, had surrounded my cabin with almost ritualistic precision. And they knew my name. How did they know my name? I hadn't exactly been social since moving here, barely speaking to anyone beyond Wesley and the occasional clerk at the general store in town. That afternoon, I decided to investigate the spot where I'd seen the campfire. The clearing was easy enough to find. A perfect circle about 15 feet in diameter, the grass trampled flat. In the center lay the charred remains of a fire, but arranged around it were objects that made my skin crawl. Small bundles of twigs bound with what looked like human hair, animal bones arranged in geometric patterns, and most disturbing of all, a photograph of me. Not a recent one. It was from nearly 20 years ago, my college graduation. How the hell did they get that? I nearly jumped out of my skin when my satellite phone buzzed. A text from Elaine. "Tried calling. Everything okay?" I frantically typed back, explaining the situation, begging her to contact the local sheriff. The message failed to send. I tried again. Failed. The third attempt, the screen displayed a single message. "We are the only connection you need." I hurled the phone into the trees, panic rising in my chest. I needed to leave. Now? I rushed back to the cabin, threw essential supplies into a backpack, and headed for my truck. The engine turned over once, twice, then died with a sickening clunk. I popped the hood to find the battery cables had been cleanly cut. My heart hammered against my ribs as I slammed the hood shut and turned back toward the cabin. That's when I saw them. 3 figures standing at the edge of the clearing, wearing those same bark masks. They made no move to approach, just stood watching, perfectly still. I ran inside, bolted the door, and grabbed my shotgun. The sun was setting. I had maybe an hour of daylight left. I tried to think rationally. How far was it to the main road? 8 miles, maybe 10. I could make it on foot before midnight if I moved quickly. But that would mean walking through the forest, in the dark, potentially straight into whatever was waiting for me. My other option was to fortify the cabin and hope someone noticed I was missing. But who would? Elaine might eventually get concerned enough to call the sheriff. But how long would that take? Days? Weeks? As the last light faded from the sky, they began to chant. It started as a low hum, barely audible, then grew into a rhythmic, wordless song that seemed to come from all directions at once. I peered through my window to see dozens of them now, forming a wider circle around my property, their masks reflecting the moonlight. In the center of my yard, they had erected a crude wooden structure, something between a totem and a scarecrow, draped with animal skins. At its top was another mask, this one seemingly fashioned to resemble my own face. Night fell completely, and I sat with my back against the wall, shotgun across my knees, listening to their chanting rise and fall like waves. Occasionally, one would break from the circle and approach my cabin, leaving some offering on my doorstep, a dead rabbit, a bundle of herbs, strange carved stones. Each time, I would hear a gentle knock, that same measured rhythm from the night before. And each time, I remained frozen in place, wondering if the next knock would be followed by something far worse. I must have fallen asleep despite my terror because I woke to sunlight and silence. The figures were gone, but their gifts remained scattered across my porch. Among them, I found something that made my blood run cold, my wallet, which I'd left in my truck. Inside was a piece of bark with a crude drawing of a figure kneeling before a larger, inhuman shape. The message seemed clear: submit or suffer. But submit to what? And why me? With shaking hands, I searched the cabin for anything that could help me understand what was happening. In a dusty box in the attic, I found documents from the previous owner, journal entries that mentioned the Watchers and their selection process. Every few years, apparently, they chose someone to join their community. The final entry simply read, "They're coming tonight. I can't run anymore." Maybe becoming one of them is better than being hunted by them. The date was exactly 7 years ago. I wondered if Wesley knew more than he was letting on. Had he known what might happen when I bought this property? Was that why the price had been so surprisingly low? I searched for clues about these Watchers, their origins, their purpose. The journal mentioned an elder tree deep in the forest where they performed their conversions. It was marked on a crude map, about 3 miles northeast of my cabin. Part of me wanted to find it, to understand what I was dealing with. The other part wanted to burn the cabin to the ground and run. Around noon, I heard a vehicle approaching. For one hopeful moment, I thought Elaine had somehow gotten my message and sent help. Instead, Wesley's truck appeared, but something was wrong. He didn't park in his usual spot, and he moved stiffly as he approached my door. When I let him in, his eyes seemed different, vacant, unfocused. "They want to meet you properly," he said in a monotone voice, nothing like his usual gruff drawl. "They've been watching you since before you arrived. You were chosen." "What do you mean, chosen?" I demanded, backing away from him. Wesley smiled, but it never reached his eyes. He explained that the Watchers were the original inhabitants of this land, living in harmony with the forest for centuries. Every 7 years, they needed new blood to sustain their community. New perspectives, new energy. "It's an honor," Wesley insisted. "I've served as their messenger for 30 years. You'll understand once you join them." That's when I noticed the bark fragments embedded in his skin, peeking out from his collar like some kind of parasitic growth. I pretended to consider his offer, buying time as I edged toward my shotgun. "When would this joining happen?" I asked. Wesley's expression was almost pitying. "Tonight is the completion of the lunar cycle. They'll come for you at midnight. The transformation isn't painful, not really. You'll be disconnected from your old life, but connected to something far greater." As he spoke, I noticed something moving beneath his shirt, something that looked disturbingly like roots or vines shifting beneath his skin. The moment Wesley turned to look out the window, I grabbed my shotgun and pointed it at him. "Get out," I ordered, my voice surprisingly steady despite my terror. He didn't seem afraid or even surprised. "You can't fight what's coming, Thaddeus," he said calmly. "They're already inside your head. Haven't you noticed the dreams? The whispers? Soon you won't remember why you ever wanted to leave." As if to prove his point, I suddenly recalled dreams I'd been having since moving here. Dreams of roots growing from my fingertips, of bark encasing my limbs, of becoming one with the ancient trees. After Wesley left, I frantically gathered supplies for escape: food, water, a compass, my hunting knife. The rational part of my brain kept insisting this was mass hysteria, some kind of bizarre prank, or that I was having a mental breakdown. But I couldn't explain away what I'd seen in Wesley's eyes, the inhuman quality of his movements, or the systematic way these people had isolated me. As I stuffed supplies into my backpack, I found more bark fragments under my pillow, inside my shoes, mixed into my food stores. They had been inside my cabin while I slept. With daylight still on my side, I headed into the forest away from the direction of the elder tree, hoping to reach the highway that cut through the county about 15 miles south. The woods were unnaturally quiet. No birds, no insects, not even the rustle of small animals in the underbrush. Just endless trees and the growing sense that every step was being watched. I tried to move quickly but carefully, checking my compass obsessively. After about an hour, I realized I had been walking in a complete circle, somehow ending up just 100 yards from my cabin despite heading in the opposite direction. Panic took hold as I tried again, this time marking trees as I passed them. Same result. I'd walk straight for an hour only to find myself back where I started. The forest was disorienting me somehow, the paths shifting, the landmarks rearranging themselves. Or maybe it was in my head, some kind of suggestion planted by the Watchers, manipulating my perception. By late afternoon, I was exhausted, dehydrated, and no closer to escape than when I'd started. I decided to change tactics. If I couldn't escape, maybe I could understand what I was dealing with. I reluctantly headed toward the elder tree marked on the map. The temperature dropped noticeably as I approached the location, the forest growing denser, older. The trees here were massive, their trunks twisted into impossible shapes, branches reaching toward each other to form a canopy so thick that little sunlight penetrated through. And there in the center of a clearing stood the elder tree, a colossal oak that must have been hundreds of years old, its trunk wide enough that 10 men couldn't encircle it with their arms. As I approached, I noticed the bark was covered in the same symbols I'd seen carved into trees near my cabin. At its base lay offerings, animal bones, strange totems, and what looked disturbingly like human teeth. The air around the tree hummed with energy, making the hairs on my arms stand on end. I stood transfixed, unable to look away from the patterns in the bark that seemed to shift and move when I wasn't focusing directly on them. Was this the source of the Watcher's power? Some kind of ancient entity they worshipped? A twig snapped behind me. I spun around to find myself surrounded by figures in bark masks, at least 20 of them, forming a tight circle around me and the elder tree. They made no move to approach, simply watching in that unervingly still way. Among them stood Wesley, now barely recognizable. His skin had taken on the texture of bark, his fingers elongated into twig-like appendages. "The elder has been waiting for you," he said, his voice now a creaking, wooden sound. "It's time to join us, Thaddeus. Time to put down roots." My mind raced through options, each more desperate than the last. I could try to fight my way out, but I was hopelessly outnumbered. I could try reasoning with them, but the vacant look in Wesley's eyes told me rational argument would have no effect. Or I could appear to submit, look for an opening, and make one final escape attempt. Fighting back panic, I chose the third option. "I'm honored," I managed to say, "but I need to understand what this means. What will happen to me?" Wesley approached, moving with that strange, fluid grace that seemed more plant than human. "You'll become part of something ancient, something eternal," he explained, gesturing to the massive tree. "Your consciousness will join with the elder, your body transformed into a perfect vessel to carry its influence. You'll never age, never sicken, never die, just grow and change with the seasons." As he spoke, I noticed other figures emerging from the tree line, but these weren't wearing masks. Their faces were bark, their limbs branches, their eyes empty knots of wood. Former, chosen ones, I realized with horror. They began a slow procession toward the elder tree, forming a line that led directly to a hollow at its base. The chanting started again, that same rhythmic, wordless song. I felt my will weakening, my body moving forward without conscious decision. Every step toward the tree became harder to resist, as if invisible threads were pulling me forward. My vision blurred, filled with images of root systems spreading beneath the earth, of ancient knowledge flowing like sap through wooden veins, of eternal communion with the forest. With the last of my willpower, I reached for my hunting knife. The Watchers didn't try to stop me. They probably thought I was surrendering, offering myself to their elder god. Instead, I plunged the blade into the tree's trunk with all my strength. A horrible sound filled the air, part scream, part cracking wood, and the Watchers froze in their tracks. Dark sap oozed from the wound, smelling of rot and decay. The chanting stopped abruptly, replaced by a high-pitched keening that seemed to come from the tree itself. The momentary confusion was all I needed. I bolted past the stunned figures, running blindly through the forest. Behind me, I heard pursuit, not the crashing of human feet, but a slithering, rustling sound like branches being dragged across the forest floor. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs threatened to give out, changing direction randomly, splashing through streams to mask my scent or trail. The light was fading fast, but I kept moving, driven by pure survival instinct. As darkness fell completely, I found myself at the edge of a ravine I didn't recognize. The sounds of pursuit had faded, but I didn't dare stop. I scrambled down the steep incline, losing my footing halfway and tumbling painfully to the bottom. Dazed but unbroken, I dragged myself up and continued forward, using the ravine as a guide. After what felt like hours, I saw lights in the distance. Not the flickering of campfires, but the steady glow of streetlights. Civilization. Safety. The small highway motel sign glowed like a beacon of hope as I staggered from the tree line, clothes torn, body covered in scratches and bruises. The teenage clerk looked up from his phone with alarm as I burst through the door, wild-eyed and rambling about people in the woods. I must have looked deranged, but I managed to produce enough cash for a room, collapsing onto the bed the moment I locked the door behind me. For the first time in days, I felt something like safety. Morning came with blessed normality, traffic sounds from the highway, the smell of cheap coffee from the motel office. I called Elaine from the room phone, the relief in her voice palpable as I explained that I'd had an emergency and needed her to come get me. I didn't mention the Watchers or the Elder Tree. How could I without sounding completely insane? Instead, I said there had been a break-in at the cabin, that I'd fled into the woods and gotten lost. Not entirely untrue, just heavily edited. While waiting for Elaine, I showered away days of grime and terror, watching leaf fragments and bits of bark circle the drain. Each passing hour in the mundane surroundings of the motel helped ground me in reality. Perhaps I'd experienced some kind of psychotic episode triggered by isolation and stress. The rational explanation felt comforting, even as I couldn't quite reconcile it with the vivid memories of what I'd seen. The clerk eyed me warily when I went to get coffee, but otherwise treated me like any other guest. Elaine arrived by mid-afternoon, concern etched on her face. "You look terrible," she said, hugging me tightly. I knew that whole off-grid thing was a bad idea. She helped me to her car, already making plans for me to stay with her in Cincinnati until I figured things out. As we drove away from the motel, I felt a weight lifting. Whatever had happened in those woods was behind me now. I would sell the cabin sight unseen, chalk the whole experience up to a nervous breakdown, and move on with my life. We stopped for gas about 30 miles from the motel. While Elaine filled the tank, I wandered into the convenience store for snacks. The television behind the counter was playing local news, a story about unusual vegetation growth in southeastern Ohio. Scientists are baffled by the rapid expansion of an unidentified plant species, the reporter said, standing in front of familiar-looking woods. Local residents report the plants appear to be spreading along human-made structures, following roads and power lines toward populated areas. My blood ran cold as the camera panned to show twisted, bark-covered growths advancing along the highway, the very highway we were currently traveling on. The feed cut to a field researcher examining one of the growths. "The cellular structure is unlike anything we've seen," he explained. "It almost appears to have both plant and human DNA, if that were possible." In the background of the shot, I could see figures moving at the edge of the forest, unnaturally still, watching. I rushed back to the car, practically dragging Elaine inside. "We need to go now," I insisted, checking the rearview mirror obsessively as she pulled back onto the highway. She tried to ask what was wrong, but I couldn't find the words to explain. How could I tell her that my nightmare wasn't over, that it might be just beginning? That whatever ancient entity lived in those woods might not be content to wait for another chosen one, might be extending its reach beyond the forest? As we drove, I noticed something disturbing, small shoots of strange plants growing along the roadside, becoming more sparse the further we got from Hocking Hills. They hadn't been there when I'd arrived in Ohio 6 months ago. They were spreading, following me perhaps, or simply expanding their territory. I thought about Wesley's transformation, the way his skin had taken on the texture of bark, the way roots had moved beneath his clothing. Was the same process happening across the region now? Had my attack on the elder tree triggered something worse than I could have imagined? We were about an hour from Cincinnati when I noticed the first tendril of bark forming on my wrist. Just a small patch, easily hidden under my sleeve, but unmistakable. I felt no pain, just a strange numbness in that spot. "They're already inside your head," Wesley had said. Inside my body too, apparently. The elder tree had marked me somehow, infected me, and now the transformation was beginning despite my escape. I thought about telling Elaine, asking her to take me to a hospital, but what could modern medicine do against something this ancient? As we crossed the Cincinnati city limits, I made a decision. I wouldn't bring this curse into my sister's home, wouldn't risk spreading whatever was happening to me. I asked Elaine to stop at a hotel instead of her apartment, claiming I needed some time alone to process everything. She reluctantly agreed, making me promise to call her in the morning. As I checked into the room, I could feel more bark forming along my arms, my legs, spreading slowly but steadily. In the bathroom mirror, I saw tiny leaves budding along my hairline, green, vibrant, alive. I sit now at the desk in my hotel room, writing this account while I still can, while my fingers are still mostly fingers and my mind is still mostly mine. The transformation is accelerating. I can feel the elder tree's influence growing stronger with each passing hour. Soon, I fear I will be like Wesley, a messenger for the Watchers, seeking the next chosen one. Perhaps this document will serve as a warning to others. Some forms of isolation come with prices too terrible to contemplate. The forests of southeastern Ohio are ancient, patient, and hungry. And now, they're spreading. My name is Ellis Thorne. I'm 42 years old, and I never thought I'd end up alone in a weathered cabin outside Chillicothe, Ohio. After 2 decades grinding away at a finance job in Columbus, I craved simplicity. My ex-wife Maureen thought I was having a midlife crisis when I cashed out my 401k to buy this forgotten property deep in the Appalachian foothills. Maybe she was right. The realtor seemed almost apologetic showing me the place. No electricity, spotty cell service, and a well that needed work. Perfect, I thought. My neighbor, if you could call him that, was a gruff older man named Harlan who lived about a mile down the dirt road. He raised chickens and kept to himself, only nodding when I waved during my supply runs to town. The first month was idyllic. Waking with the sun, chopping wood, fixing up the cabin's sagging porch, and falling asleep to the symphony of crickets and distant coyotes. I kept a journal by lantern light, something I hadn't done since college. The isolation felt medicinal after years of conference calls and fluorescent lighting. My sister Justine called me a fool for playing mountain man, but weekly check-ins via satellite phone were our compromise. Just don't become one of those weirdos they find years later, she'd joke. If only jokes couldn't become prophecies. By late October, the trees blazed with autumn colors, and the nighttime temperatures started dipping below freezing. I'd settled into a comfortable routine, gathering fallen branches in the morning, repairing the east wall's insulation in the afternoon, fishing in the creek when food supplies ran low. On Thursdays, I'd hike to where I could get cell service and call Justine. Still alive, still sane, was our running joke. My body felt stronger than it had in years. My mind, clearer. The persistent anxiety that had dogged me in the city had finally begun to recede. That Wednesday night, I was reading by lantern when I heard the first vehicle. In 3 months, I'd never had an unexpected visitor. The property sat at the end of a private drive that branched off an already secluded county road. There was no reason for anyone to be here. I doused my lantern and moved to the window, watching headlights snake through the trees, moving deliberately toward my cabin. The vehicle, an old pickup truck from what I could make out, stopped about 50 yards from my front door and cut its lights. I reached for my shotgun, a Remington I'd bought mostly for wild animals. 2 figures emerged from the truck but made no move toward the cabin. They just stood there in the darkness, seemingly looking in my direction. I couldn't make out faces, just silhouettes, one tall and lanky, the other shorter and stockier. For 15 excruciating minutes, they remained motionless, as though studying the cabin. Then, without approaching, they got back in their truck and reversed down my drive. My heart pounded against my ribs long after their taillights disappeared. I told myself they were probably lost hunters or teenagers looking for a place to drink. But in that moment, I realized how vulnerable I truly was. The next morning, I checked the area where they'd parked. The ground was too hard to show tire tracks, but I found cigarette butts, Marlboro Reds, and what looked like boot prints in a patch of mud. I hiked to my usual spot to call Justine a day early, but couldn't get a signal. Cloud cover, maybe. I spent the day securing the cabin, checking window locks, reinforcing the door. The woods that had felt like a sanctuary now seemed to conceal watchful eyes. That night, I slept with the shotgun beside me, waking at every snapping twig or rustling leaf. Friday morning, I discovered my woodpile had been disturbed. Not dramatically. I might not have noticed if I weren't already on edge, but several logs had been rearranged. Someone had been here while I slept. The realization sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the autumn air. I decided to hike to Harlan's place, hoping he might know something about strangers in the area. The walk took longer than expected, my eyes constantly scanning the tree line. When I arrived, I found his chicken coop empty and his front door slightly ajar. "Harlan," I called, stepping onto his porch. No answer. I pushed the door open, calling his name again. The cabin was cold, no fire in the wood stove, and eerily quiet. A half-eaten bowl of oatmeal sat on the table, a thin layer of mold forming on its surface. Harlan's shotgun still hung above the fireplace, which struck me as odd. No backwoods Ohioan would leave home without protection. I checked the bedroom and found his bed made, a thin layer of dust covering the quilt. The bathroom was empty, no sign of struggle. It was as though he'd simply vanished in the middle of breakfast days ago. My stomach twisted with dread as I backed out of the cabin. That's when I noticed the cigarette butts on Harlan's porch, Marlboro Reds. I practically ran back to my cabin, paranoia blooming with each step. The forest that had once seemed so peaceful now felt sinister, every shadow potentially concealing a threat. I knew I should drive to town, report Harlan missing, but something kept me from leaving. Pride, maybe, or foolish stubbornness. Instead, I barricaded myself inside as night fell, pushing a heavy dresser against the door and keeping the shotgun within reach. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by the slightest sounds. Around 3 in the morning, I jolted awake to the unmistakable crunch of footsteps on the gravel outside. Someone was circling my cabin. The footsteps continued their methodical circuit around my cabin, unhurried, deliberate. I lay frozen in bed, pulse hammering in my ears. As they completed one full lap, then began another. Whoever was out there wanted me to know they were watching. When a floorboard creaked on my porch, I finally moved, grabbing the shotgun and pressing myself against the wall beside the window. Through a gap in the curtains, I could make out a tall figure standing motionless, face obscured by the brim of a work cap. He held something in his hand, a flashlight, I thought at first, until he raised it to his mouth. The ember of a cigarette glowed momentarily before being extinguished underfoot. By dawn, the visitors had vanished, but their message was clear. They could come and go as they pleased. I spent the morning reinforcing windows with spare lumber, hands shaking as I hammered nails. My satellite phone yielded nothing but static when I tried calling Justine. I needed to get to town, but the thought of leaving the cabin undefended made me hesitate. What little security I had would evaporate the moment I left. Still, I needed answers. I needed help. Around noon, I loaded the shotgun, tucked my hunting knife into my belt, and cautiously stepped outside, scanning the tree line as I made my way to my old Toyota 4Runner. The key turned in the ignition, but instead of the engine roaring to life, I heard only a pathetic click. Popping the hood revealed the problem immediately. Someone had removed my battery and cut several wires for good measure. My vehicle had been deliberately disabled. I slammed the hood shut, heart racing, eyes darting across the silent forest surrounding me. I was trapped. The 12 miles to town might as well have been 1,000. Walking would mean hours on exposed roads, vulnerable to whoever was stalking me, but staying meant waiting for them to make their next move. Neither option offered much hope. I decided to make a break for it just before sunset, reasoning I'd have enough daylight to cover considerable ground before nightfall. I packed light, water, jerky, my hunting knife, and the shotgun with a box of shells. As I secured the cabin, a glint of metal caught my eye from the tree line about 100 yards out. I froze, squinting to make out the shape. Binoculars. Someone was watching me right now. I ducked back inside, heart pounding, and peered through my own pair of binoculars from the window. There, partially concealed behind a large oak, stood the taller figure from the truck, observing my cabin through high-powered optics. For hours, I sat in paralyzed indecision, waiting for the watcher to leave. But as daylight faded, I realized he had been joined by others, 2 additional shadows moving with practiced stealth through the underbrush surrounding my property. They were coordinating, communicating via handheld radios I could occasionally hear crackling in the distance. This wasn't random, this was tactical. By midnight, I'd counted 5 different individuals establishing positions around my cabin. I recognized none of them, but they clearly knew the terrain better than I did. My escape plan had evaporated. Around 2 a.m., a pebble struck my bedroom window, a small sound, but deliberate. Then another. I crouched below the sill, shotgun ready, as a voice called out softly, "Mr. Thorne?" "Ellis Thorne." The voice was male, surprisingly gentle. "We know you're in there. We just want to talk." Another voice, deeper, added, "About what happened to Harlan." My blood ran cold. What did they think I knew? What did they think I'd done? "Come out now. Make this easy on yourself." The first voice continued, an edge creeping in. "Or we'll have to come in and get you." I remained silent, mind racing. They thought I was involved in Harlan's disappearance. But why target me? Why not go to the police? Unless they were the reason Harlan was missing, and I was next. The thought triggered something primal in me. I would not disappear quietly. I'm armed, I called out, voice steadier than I felt. And I don't know anything about Harlan. I went to check on him yesterday and found his place empty. Silence followed, then murmured conversation I couldn't make out. Finally, the first voice responded, "We'll be back tomorrow night with more friends. Think carefully about your situation, Mr. Thorne." Dawn brought an uneasy quiet and the opportunity to assess my predicament more clearly. These people, whoever they were, believed I was connected to Harlan's disappearance. Was he part of their group? Had he been hiding from them? I searched the cabin for anything I might have missed, any clue about what was happening. In my desperation, I tore through everything, checking under floorboards, inside the chimney, behind loose wallpaper. That's when I found it. A small metal box tucked into a hollow space behind the kitchen cabinets. Inside lay a flash drive, a handwritten map, and a photograph of Harlan standing with 3 other men, all holding rifles. On the back, written in faded ink, Ohio Militia, 1997. My hands trembled as I unfolded the map. It showed the surrounding forest with markings I didn't understand, coordinates, symbols, annotations in cramped handwriting. Whatever this was, it was clearly important enough that people were willing to threaten, possibly kill, to obtain it. I had stumbled into something much bigger than a simple off-grid lifestyle. As I studied the materials, a horrifying possibility emerged. What if Harlan had sold me this cabin knowing what would follow? What if I was merely bait, a diversion? The isolation that had once felt like freedom now closed around me like a trap. The sound of an approaching vehicle jolted me from my thoughts. I shoved the box's contents into my pack and grabbed the shotgun, moving to the window. Through the trees, I glimpsed not the expected pickup truck, but a police cruiser making its way up my drive. Relief flooded through me. Someone must have reported Harlan missing. Help had arrived. I stepped onto the porch, waving as the cruiser parked. The officer who emerged was young, probably early 30s, with close-cropped hair and mirrored sunglasses despite the overcast day. "Mr. Thorne," he called, one hand resting casually on his holstered weapon. "Sheriff's Department. Got a report about some disturbances out here." "Thank God you're here," I said, lowering my shotgun and stepping toward the officer. His name tag read Keller. "Someone's been stalking my cabin, disabled my vehicle, and my neighbor Harlan is missing." Officer Keller removed his sunglasses, revealing eyes that assessed me with clinical detachment. "Mind if I come in, Mr. Thorne? We can talk inside." Something in his tone made the hairs on my neck stand up, but I nodded, leading him into the cabin. As he stepped over the threshold, I noticed mud on his boots, the same distinctive tread pattern I'd seen outside Harlan's cabin. "Quite the setup you've got here," Keller remarked, scanning the interior with too much interest, lingering on the fortified windows. "Most folks who move out this way are running from something." He turned to face me directly. "What are you running from, Mr. Thorne?" I explained my situation: corporate burnout, divorce, the desire for simplicity, while he nodded too frequently, his eyes continuing to search the cabin. "And when did you last see Harlan Blackwood?" he asked, the question hanging heavy in the air. "About 3 days ago, from a distance." I lied, not mentioning my visit to Harlan's empty cabin. Something told me revealing too much would be dangerous. Keller wrote nothing down, had taken no official statement. "Strange things happen in these woods, Mr. Thorne. People disappear. City folks like yourself don't always understand the ecosystem here." He smiled, teeth too white against his tanned face. "I'd hate to file a missing persons report only to find out Harlan just went hunting. Makes the department look foolish." He stepped closer. "Truth is, Harlan's got history around here. Complicated history. You sure you haven't found anything of his? Maybe something he left in this cabin before you bought it?" The casual question carried unmistakable menace. My pack containing Harlan's metal box sat just feet away, partially visible under the kitchen table. Keller's gaze hadn't found it yet, but it was only a matter of time. "Nothing," I said, moving subtly to block his line of sight. Place was empty when I moved in. "Listen, about the people who've been watching my cabin," Keller cut me off with a raised hand. "Probably just locals curious about the newcomer. Folks get territorial." He handed me a card with his number. "Call if you find anything that might help us locate Harlan. Anything at all." As he turned to leave, his radio crackled with a voice I recognized from last night's confrontation. The moment Keller's cruiser disappeared down my drive, I grabbed my pack and the shotgun. Whoever these people were, they had connections in local law enforcement. My window of opportunity was closing fast. I couldn't take my disabled vehicle, couldn't risk the main road where Keller or his associates might spot me. The only option was to strike out through the forest, using Harlan's map to navigate toward what? I had no destination, just the desperate need to put distance between myself and the cabin before nightfall brought my visitors back with more friends. I set out heading northwest, away from both my cabin and Harlan's, into the densest part of the forest. The terrain was rough, steep ravines, thick underbrush, fallen trees creating natural obstacles. Perfect for losing pursuers, but exhausting to traverse. As the afternoon wore on, clouds gathered overhead, promising rain. I pushed harder, knowing wet conditions would make tracking me easier. My city muscles, despite 3 months of cabin life, burned with the exertion. Every snapping twig made me freeze. Every distant sound could be footsteps gaining ground. Around dusk, the first drops of rain began to fall. I found shelter beneath a rock outcropping and finally examined Harlan's map more carefully. The markings formed what looked like a perimeter, with several X's denoting specific locations. One X, about 5 miles from my position according to the topographical lines, was circled repeatedly in red. Something important was there. As night fully descended, the rain became a downpour. I huddled against the stone, listening to water drumming against leaves, trying to distinguish natural sounds from potential pursuit. That's when I saw the beam of a flashlight sweeping through the trees about 100 yards downhill. Then another, and another. At least 3 searchers, moving in a coordinated pattern up the slope toward me. They'd picked up my trail faster than I'd anticipated. I extinguished my own light and pressed deeper into my rocky shelter, hoping the rain would mask my scent and tracks. The beams grew closer, accompanied by radio chatter too distant to make out clearly. I readied my shotgun and calculated my odds. 3 against 1, possibly more I couldn't see. Not good. The closest flashlight stopped about 50 feet from my position. "Tracks end here," a voice called out, barely audible above the rain. Another responded, "Spread out. Check that outcropping." My hiding spot had been identified. Fight wasn't an option against these numbers. Flight was my only chance. I waited until the searchers separated slightly, then burst from cover, running laterally across the slope rather than up or down. Shouts erupted behind me, flashlight beams swinging wildly in my direction. A gunshot cracked through the darkness, the bullet splintering bark inches from my head. These weren't law enforcement officers making an arrest. They were hunters, and I was their prey. My lungs burned as I crashed through the underbrush, branches whipping across my face, mud sucking at my boots. The rain had become torrential, transforming the forest floor into treacherous terrain. Behind me, flashlight beams bounced chaotically as my pursuers gave chase, their shouts carrying through the storm. Another shot rang out, wild but close enough to send adrenaline surging through me. I veered sharply downhill, sliding more than running down a steep embankment toward the sound of rushing water. If I could reach the creek, maybe I could use it to mask my trail. The ground suddenly disappeared beneath me, a hidden drop-off concealed by darkness and rain. I tumbled painfully down a rocky slope, the shotgun flying from my grasp before I slammed into ice-cold water. The current immediately seized me, stronger than I'd anticipated, sweeping me downstream. I fought to keep my head above water while clinging desperately to my pack. Behind me, flashlights appeared at the top of the ravine, voices shouting directions. The creek carried me around a bend, temporarily obscuring me from view, but I knew they'd follow the waterway, anticipating exactly what I'd done. After what felt like an eternity, the creek widened and slowed enough for me to drag myself onto a gravel bank. I'd lost the shotgun, but my pack had somehow remained strapped to my body. Shivering violently, I assessed my situation, soaked through, minor injuries from the fall, no weapon beyond my hunting knife, and pursuers certainly still on my trail. The rain continued to pour, providing cover but sapping my body heat. Hypothermia would kill me as surely as my pursuers if I didn't find shelter soon. Consulting Harlan's map under my small flashlight, I identified a possible location for the red circled X. It appeared to be an old fire tower on a nearby ridge. Using the compass on my watch, I oriented myself and began moving toward the ridge, fighting through exhaustion and cold. The climb was brutal: slick rocks, thick mud, vegetation that seemed determined to impede every step. Twice I heard voices in the distance, freezing in place until they faded. The rain finally began to ease as false dawn lightened the eastern sky. I reached the ridgeline just as the first true rays of sunrise broke through the clouds, revealing a landscape of endless trees stretching to the horizon. And there, about half a mile ahead, stood the silhouette of an abandoned fire tower. The structure was older than I'd expected, wooden rather than metal, weather-beaten and partially collapsed on one side. Approaching cautiously, I circled the tower's base, finding a padlocked trapdoor that might once have led to a storage area. The lock was recent, incongruous with the tower's decrepit state. Using my knife and a rock, I managed to break it open after several minutes of effort. Inside, a narrow ladder descended into darkness. With one last glance at the surrounding forest to ensure I hadn't been followed, I lowered myself into the unknown. My flashlight revealed a small concrete room that had been converted into something between a bunker and a command center. A generator sat silent in one corner beside shelves stocked with canned food and water. Maps similar to the one I'd found covered one wall. The same area, but with far more detailed markings. A ham radio setup occupied a desk, and a cot with military-grade sleeping bags stood ready against the far wall. Most disturbing, however, was the row of photographs pinned to a corkboard, surveillance images of various individuals, including Officer Keller, the men who'd been watching my cabin, and several others I didn't recognize. In the center, circled in red marker, my driver's license photo. With trembling hands, I powered up the generator, which hummed to life with surprising quietness. The lights revealed even more unsettling details. Newspaper clippings about disappearances in the area dating back decades, handwritten journals filled with paranoid observations, and a gun rack containing several rifles and boxes of ammunition. I turned on the radio, carefully adjusting dials as I'd seen Harlan do once when I'd visited him. Static crackled, then a voice came through mid-conversation. No sign of him along the creek. Keller thinks he might have reached the ridge. Another voice responded. If he makes it to the tower, we're compromised. Everything goes tonight. My blood froze. They knew about this place, and they were closing in. I had maybe hours, possibly less. I frantically searched through the materials, looking for anything that might explain what I'd stumbled into. A leather-bound journal caught my eye, newer than the others, with entries dated just weeks before I'd purchased my cabin. The handwriting was Harlan's, and what I read made my skin crawl. Sold the cabin to a city boy named Thorne. Perfect setup. They'll focus on him while I complete the final preparations. God forgive me, but some sacrifices are necessary in this war. Stunned, I continued reading, piecing together a horrifying truth. Harlan hadn't disappeared. He'd orchestrated everything, using me as a decoy. The Ohio militia from the photograph wasn't just some weekend warrior club. It was a deep-rooted organization with apocalyptic beliefs. They'd been stockpiling weapons, monitoring government agents, and preparing for some imminent conflict. Harlan had been their leader until a recent schism. The faction now hunting me believed Harlan had evidence that could destroy them, evidence he'd hidden somewhere on my property. They thought I was his accomplice, his chosen successor. The truth, that I was an oblivious pawn, would matter little to them now. The radio crackled again. Teams in position, moving on the tower in 20 minutes. I had no time left. I grabbed one of the rifles, checked that it was loaded, and stuffed my pack with as much food and water as I could carry. There had to be another exit. These people wouldn't build a bunker with only one way out. Searching frantically, I discovered a narrow passage behind the gun rack, leading to a crude tunnel reinforced with timber. It sloped upward, presumably toward another exit point further along the ridge. With the sounds of approaching vehicles reaching me from outside, I plunged into the darkness, praying the tunnel wouldn't become my tomb. The tunnel stretched longer than expected, occasionally branching into smaller passages that I avoided, fearing they might be dead ends. My flashlight beam weakened, batteries dying after the night's ordeal. The air grew increasingly stale, dust tickling my lungs with each breath. After what felt like an hour of crawling through claustrophobic darkness, I detected a faint breeze, an indication of an opening ahead. Hope surged through me until I heard voices echoing from that very direction. They'd anticipated this escape route. I killed my flashlight and froze, listening intently. Two men stood near the exit, speaking in low tones. "Should have collapsed this years ago," one said. "Too late now. If he's in there, he's cornered." The second voice responded, "Keller's got the main entrance covered. It's just a waiting game." They were right. I was trapped between two forces with dwindling options. The rifle I'd taken suddenly felt inadequate against what sounded like a small army. As I contemplated my next move, a distant explosion rocked the tunnel, sending dust and small debris raining down on me. They'd blown the tower entrance. The blast created momentary chaos, shouts of confusion, radio chatter, the two guards at my end rushing away to investigate. This was my only chance. I scrambled toward the exit, emerging into daylight behind a cluster of boulders on the far side of the ridge. Below me, several vehicles were parked haphazardly, trucks and SUVs with mud-splattered exteriors. Men with rifles moved purposefully toward the column of smoke rising from where the tower had stood. I counted at least 8 of them, plus whoever had been inside the vehicles. My odds were deteriorating by the second. I needed to put distance between myself and the ridge, but moving in daylight across open terrain would make me an easy target. That's when I noticed one vehicle slightly separated from the others. A dirt bike leaning against a tree, keys dangling from the ignition. The owner had clearly expected a quick return. It was perhaps 100 yards away, with sparse cover between my position and the bike. A desperate plan formed in my mind, the only one with any chance of success. I waited until all attention was focused on the smoldering tower, then made my move, staying low and using what little concealment the terrain offered. I'd nearly reached the motorcycle when a shout went up. I'd been spotted. Abandoning stealth, I sprinted the final distance, grabbing the keys and throwing my leg over the seat in one fluid motion. The engine roared to life just as the first bullets kicked up dirt around me. Hunched low over the handlebars, I opened the throttle and shot forward, zigzagging down the crude trail that served as their access road. Behind me, engines started as my pursuers scrambled to give chase. The dirt bike had the advantage of speed and maneuverability on the narrow forest paths, but I had no illusions. They knew these woods far better than I did. The path eventually connected with what appeared to be a logging road, wider and better maintained. I gained speed, the wind whipping tears from my eyes as I pushed the bike to its limits. The mirror showed 2 pickup trucks in pursuit, closing the distance on the improved terrain. I needed to disappear before reaching any main road where Officer Keller or his colleagues might be waiting. When the logging road forked, I veered right, then immediately cut the engine and pushed the bike into dense underbrush, continuing on foot into a ravine thick with vegetation. The sounds of vehicles roaring past my hiding spot told me I'd bought myself minutes at most. My only hope now was reaching civilization, somewhere public with witnesses, too many for even corrupt local law enforcement to control. According to the map, the nearest town was Laurelville, about 10 miles east. On foot through difficult terrain, avoiding roads where I'd be exposed, it would take hours if I could make it at all. As I pushed through the forest, the weight of Harlan's betrayal pressed down on me. I had been nothing but a convenient distraction, a sacrificial lamb in someone else's war. My off-grid dream had made me the perfect target, isolated, unconnected, unlikely to be missed immediately. Night fell as I continued my exhausted trek eastward, guided by my compass and the occasional landmark I could match to Harlan's map. Every sound made me flinch. A deer crashing through underbrush nearly stopped my heart. When distant engine noises reached me, I would freeze, sometimes lying motionless for 30 minutes until convinced it was safe to move again. Around midnight, I caught sight of scattered lights through the trees, the outskirts of Laurelville. Civilization had never looked so beautiful. I allowed myself a moment of hope. If I could reach the town, find a police station or hospital, someone who wasn't part of this conspiracy. The blow came from behind, something heavy striking the back of my skull. I never heard my attacker approach. As I crumpled to the ground, consciousness fading, a familiar voice reached my ears. "You shouldn't have run, Mr. Thorne." Officer Keller's face appeared above me, flashlight highlighting his cold smile. "You've made this much harder than it needed to be." As darkness closed in around the edges of my vision, Another figure stepped into view, thinner, older, with a beard I recognized despite my fading awareness. Harlan. He looked down at me with something like regret in his eyes. Nothing personal, Ellis. Wrong place, wrong time. Those were the last words I heard before consciousness slipped away entirely, leaving me to wonder if I would ever wake again. Rain pelts the tin roof of my cabin, a steady drumbeat in the dark. I'm Eldon Warwick, 34 years old, and this rickety place in the Ohio wilderness is my new home. I left Columbus behind. Too much noise, too many people. Out here, in the Hocking Hills, it's just me, the trees, and my dog, Sable. She's a scruffy mutt, loyal but skittish, curled up by the wood stove. I built this cabin myself, logs and nails, sweat and blisters. No electricity, no neighbors, just a generator for emergencies. I wanted freedom, to live off the land, hunt and fish. My sister, Mara, 29, thinks I'm nuts. She's back in the city with her husband, Lyle, who's always got a smirk like he knows better. They visited once, said it was too quiet. Too quiet? That's the point. The forest smells like damp earth and pine, sharp and alive. I chop wood daily, stack it by the porch. Sable watches, her ears twitching at every squirrel. I've got a rifle, a .308, for deer or whatever else might wander too close. The cabin's small, one room, a cot, a table, and a shelf of canned goods. I'm learning to can venison, though my first batch tasted like regret. The nearest town, Logan, is a 40-minute drive. I go once a month for supplies, flour, coffee, batteries. The locals eye me like I'm some hermit, but I don't care. This is my reset, my way to ditch the grind. Night falls fast here, swallowing the hills. I light a lantern, its glow flickering on the walls. Sable's asleep, snoring softly. I'm reading an old paperback, some horror novel about cursed woods. Ironic, right? The rain's heavier now, wind rattling the windows. I'm used to the sounds out here. Owls, coyotes, branches snapping. But tonight, something feels off. Not a sound, just a weight in the air, like the forest holding its breath. I shrug it off, sip my coffee. Probably just the storm. I've been here 3 months, and it's not all romantic. The first week, I sliced my hand chopping wood. Blood everywhere. Had to stitch it myself. Mara called it a red flag, but I laughed her off. I'm careful now, keep my axe sharp. Sable's my early warning system. She barks at anything bigger than a raccoon. Still, I check the locks twice before bed. You never know what's out there. Bears, maybe, or drifters. The hills have stories, old ones about people vanishing. I don't buy into that nonsense. The lantern's flame dances, casting shadows that look like reaching hands. I chuckle at myself. Too much horror fiction. Sable stirs, her eyes glinting in the dark. I tell her it's fine, just the storm. But I grab the rifle anyway, rest it against the table. Better safe than sorry, right? I'm not scared, not yet. This is my place, my rules. I built this life to be simple, to be mine. Still, I can't shake that feeling, like something's watching from the trees. I toss another log on the fire, sparks popping. Sable's ears perk up, but she doesn't growl. I tell myself it's nothing, just the isolation playing tricks. Back in Columbus, I'd be scrolling my phone, numb to the world. Here, every creak feels personal. I'm not paranoid, but I'm not stupid either. I check the windows, peer into the rain-soaked dark. Nothing but trees swaying in the wind. I laugh it off, call myself jumpy. The storm's getting worse, thunder rolling over the hills. Sable whines, scooting closer to me. I pat her head, tell her we're good. But that heavy feeling lingers, like a bad taste. I set the book down, too distracted to read. Maybe it's just the weather, or maybe I'm not as tough as I thought. Either way, I'm not sleeping yet. I stand, stretch, and check the door again. Locked tight. The rain's a roar now, drowning out everything else. Sable's staring at the window, her tail still. I follow her gaze, but it's just black out there, a wall of night. I tell myself it's fine, just a storm. But deep down, I'm not so sure. Something scratches at the edge of my mind, like a nail on wood. I shake it off, grab another coffee. Tomorrow, I'll check the traps, maybe hunt. For now, I'll sit tight, rifle close. Just me and Sable, in our little world, surrounded by the dark. Morning breaks, gray and damp, the storm's leftovers dripping from the pines. I'm up early, coffee in hand, checking the traps around the cabin. Sable trots behind, sniffing the muddy ground. The first trap's empty, but the second's a mess. Something tore it apart, not tripped it. Jagged claw marks scar the metal. Could be a bear, but the marks look wrong, too precise. I shake off the creepy vibe, tell myself it's just an animal. Still, it's disturbing. I reset the trap, my hands unsteady. Back in Columbus, a broken trap would have been a shrug off. Out here, it feels personal, like the forest is testing me. I head back to the cabin, Sable sticking close. The generator's acting up again, coughing like it's got a cold. I tinker with it, but I'm no mechanic. Last month, I spent half a day cursing at it before it sputtered to life. If it dies, I'm stuck with lanterns and no fridge. I decide to drive to Logan for parts, maybe ask around about those claw marks. The idea of seeing people feels weirdly comforting, even if the townsfolk stare. I grab my keys, but Sable's whining, pacing by the door. She's never like this. Usually she's all tail wags for a car ride. The drive to Logan's bumpy, the dirt road slick with mud. I'm halfway there when I spot something in the rear view. A flash of movement in the trees, too big for a deer. My stomach twists, that horror movie feeling creeping in. I slow down, squint, but it's gone. Probably just a trick of the light, right? I laugh, call myself paranoid, but my grip on the wheel tightens. Sable's quiet, her ears flat. I tell her it's fine, but my voice sounds thin. In town, the hardware store is dim and smells like oil. The clerk, an old guy named Amos, squints at me when I ask about generator parts. He's got stories, says the hills have weird critters nobody talks about. I mention the claw marks. He goes quiet, then mumbles about checking my locks. It's unsettling, like he knows something I don't. I buy the parts, some extra ammo too, just in case. On the way out, a woman at the diner stares at me, her eyes sharp. I nod, but she doesn't nod back. Creepy. Back at the cabin, I fix the generator, but it's a band-aid job. Sable's still edgy, sniffing the air like she smells trouble. I decide to reinforce the windows. Some old boards from the shed should do. I'm hammering away when I find a weird scratch on the porch, deep and jagged, like someone dragged a knife across it. It wasn't there yesterday. My heart skips. Could be kids messing around, but the nearest house is miles away. The horror of it sinks in. This isn't random. I call Mara, needing a familiar voice. She picks up, but she's distracted, arguing with Lyle about bills. I tell her about the trap, the scratch, trying to sound casual. She laughs, says I'm hearing ghosts, but her voice tightens when I mention Amos's warning. She tells me to come back to Columbus, just for a visit. I brush it off, I'm not running. But after we hang up, I feel alone, like the hills are closing in. Sable growls at the door, low and steady. I grab the rifle. I decide to set up a game camera by the traps, something I should have done weeks ago. I'm no tech genius, but I figure it'll catch whatever's out there. The forest feels heavier tonight, the air thick. I'm sweating despite the chill, my hands shaky as I mount the camera. Back inside, I double-check the locks, the windows, everything. Sable's still growling, her eyes fixed on the dark beyond the glass. I tell her to hush, but my voice cracks. Dinner's can beans, but I barely eat. The scratches, the broken trap, Amos's weird vibe. It's all piling up, making my little off-grid dream feel like a horror show. I try to read, but the words blur. Sable's pacing now, her nails clicking on the floor. I tell myself it's just animals, maybe a bobcat. But deep down, I know bobcats don't carve up traps like that. I check the rifle again, make sure it's loaded. The night's too quiet now, no owls, no wind. Just Sable's low whine and my own heartbeat. I sit by the fire, staring at the door, wondering if I made a mistake coming out here. The forest feels alive, watching, waiting. I tell myself I'm overreacting, but then I hear it. A faint scrape, like something brushing against the cabin wall. My blood runs cold. I'm up before dawn, my eyes gritty from no sleep. Sable's curled by the door, still tense, her ears twitching. I check the game camera, heart pounding as I pull the memory card. The footage is grainy, but there's something, tall, lanky, moving too fast through the trees. Not a bear, not a deer. It's humanoid, but the way it moves, jerky and wrong, sends a chill down my spine. The horror of it hits like a punch. I replay it, hoping I'm wrong, but the figure's there, pausing near the trap, its head tilted like it's sniffing the air. Sable whines, sensing my fear. I delete the footage, hands shaking. I don't want to see it again. I grab the rifle, check the chamber. The scratches on the porch are deeper now, a whole cluster, like someone, or something, spent the night clawing at the wood. I'm no tracker, but these aren't animal marks. They're deliberate, almost like a message. My stomach knots up, the kind of dread you feel watching a scary movie, except this is my life. I decide to scout the perimeter, Sable at my heels. The forest is too still, no birds, just the crunch of my boots on leaves. Every shadow feels alive, watching. Halfway around the cabin, I find it, a footprint, human but bare, pressed deep into the mud. It's too big, toes splayed weirdly, like they're not quite right. My mind flashes to old stories, like the Mothman tales from Point Pleasant, just a few hours from here. I laugh it off, but it's forced. This is Hocking Hills, not some cryptozoology hotspot. Still, the print's disturbing, and I snap a picture with my phone. Sable's hackles are up, her growl low. I tell her to stay close, my voice barely steady. Back inside, I board up the windows tighter, hammering nails until my arms ache. The cabin feels like a trap now, not a home. I try calling Mara, but the signal's dead. First time that's happened out here. The isolation's suffocating, like the hills are swallowing me whole. I check the rifle again, count the bullets. 10 rounds. Enough for a bear, maybe, but what if it's not a bear? The thought's ridiculous, but that footage, that footprint, they're real. I decide to stay inside, keep Sable close. The day drags, the air heavy with that same wrongness from last night. I'm jumpy, every creak of the cabin making me flinch. I try to eat, but the beans taste like ash. Sable's not eating either, just staring at the door. Around dusk, I hear it, a low, guttural hum, like a voice but not quite. It's coming from the trees, faint but close. My heart's racing, the horror sinking deeper. I tell myself it's just wind, but there's no breeze. I check the game camera again, set it up closer to the cabin this time. The hum comes again, louder, like it's circling. Sable's barking now, frantic, her teeth bared. I grab the rifle, my hands slick with sweat. The hum stops, but now there's a new sound, slow, deliberate knocks on the cabin wall. 3, then silence, then 3 more. It's not random, not an animal. Someone's out there, toying with me. The terror's real now, clawing at my chest. I yell into the dark, "Who's there?" My voice cracks, sounding small. No answer, just those knocks again, harder this time. Sable's losing it, barking so loud it hurts my ears. I aim the rifle at the door, my finger off the trigger, but ready. The knocks stop, but now there's a scraping, like nails dragging across the roof. It's slow, methodical, like whatever's out there wants me to hear it. My mind's screaming, picturing that thing from the footage. I back away from the door, pull Sable with me. The scraping moves to the walls, circling the cabin. It's not just one spot, it's everywhere, like there's more than one. My heart's pounding so hard I can barely think. I whisper to Sable, telling her we're okay, but I'm lying. This isn't just some creepy animal or a prank. Something's very wrong, something that doesn't belong in these hills. I check the locks again, my hands trembling. The scraping stops, but the silence is worse. I'm frozen, rifle up, waiting for the next move. Sable's growling, her eyes locked on the ceiling. Then, a thud, something heavy lands on the roof, shaking the whole cabin. Dust sifts down from the beams. My breath catches, the horror overwhelming. Whatever's out there, it's not leaving. It's hunting. The thud on the roof shakes me to my core, dust raining down like a bad omen. Sable's barking, wild and panicked, as I grip the rifle, my knuckles white. The air's thick, the cabin a cage. I can't stay here, not with that thing, or things, circling. The scraping starts again, slower, taunting, like it knows I'm trapped. My mind races, stay and fight, or run. I think of Mara, her voice begging me to leave. I should have listened. I grab my pack, stuff it with ammo, a flashlight, and a knife. Sable's leash is in my hand, but she's trembling, eyes darting to the ceiling. The horror's choking me, but I force myself to move. I crack the door, peering into the dark. The forest is a wall of shadows, but it's quiet, too quiet. No knocks, no hums, just my own ragged breathing. I whisper to Sable, "We're going," and step onto the porch, rifle up. The air smells wrong, like rot and something metallic. My truck's 50 yards away, parked by the trail. If I can get there, I can drive to Logan, to safety. But every step feels like a gamble. Sable's tugging back, growling low. I tug her forward, my heart hammering. Something moves in the trees, a flicker of motion, too fast. I sprint, Sable bolting beside me, her leash taut. The truck's closer, but the forest comes alive. Branches snap, that guttural hum rises, closer now. I glance back, see nothing, but the terror's real, clawing at my gut. I trip over a root, hit the ground hard, the rifle skidding out of reach. Sable's barking, frantic, as I scramble up. The hum's right behind me, low and vibrating, like it's in my bones. I grab the rifle, swing it around, but there's nothing, just trees and darkness. My hands shake as I fumble for the truck keys. The truck's door creaks as I yank it open, shoving Sable inside. I climb in, slam the door, and lock it. My hands are slick with sweat, fumbling the key into the ignition. The engine sputters. Damn generator issues must have drained the battery. I try again, cursing, as something heavy slams into the truck's side, rocking it. Sable yelps, and I scream, "Come on!" The engine catches, roaring to life. I hit the gas, tires spinning in the mud, headlights cutting through the dark. Something darts across the path, tall, wrong, gone in a blink. The dirt road's a blur, branches scraping the truck. The hum's fading, but my heart's still racing. I'm not safe, not yet. The rear view shows nothing but black, but I feel eyes on me, that same disturbing weight from the first night. I think of those old Ohio stories, missing hikers, cabins torn apart. Was this what they faced? I grip the wheel, telling Sable we're okay, but my voice shakes. The road to Logan's long, and the gas gauge is lower than I'd like. I pray it's enough. Halfway to town, the headlights catch something. A figure standing in the road. I swerve, tires screeching, barely missing it. It's gone when I look back, but I saw it. Tall, too thin, eyes glinting like a cat's. My stomach lurches, the horror overwhelming. I floor it, the truck rattling. Sable's whining, pressed against me. I want to call Mara, but my phone's still dead. Logan's lights are a faint glow ahead. I just need to get there, to people, to safety. But the hum's back, faint, in the distance. I hit the town limits, streetlights washing over me. The diner's open, a few cars outside. I pull in, hands trembling as I shut off the engine. Sable's panting, her eyes wide. I sit there, catching my breath, the rifle across my lap. The diner's warm glow feels like a lifeline, but I can't shake the feeling that whatever was out there followed me. I check the mirrors, nothing. Still, I'm not getting out yet. The terror's too fresh, too raw. I think about going back, checking the cabin, but the idea makes my skin crawl. Those scratches, that footage, the footprint, they're burned into my head. I made a mistake thinking I could handle the hills alone. I tell Sable we'll stay here, maybe get a motel. But as I reach for the door handle, something taps the truck's roof, slow and deliberate. My blood freezes. It's not over. I glance up, see nothing, but the tap comes again, harder. Sable's growling, low and fierce. I clutch the rifle, my mind screaming to drive, to run, but I'm paralyzed. The diner's so close, but the dark outside feels alive, waiting. I don't know what's out there, but it's not human, not animal. It's something else, something that wants me. The horror's suffocating, and I'm not sure I can escape it. I'm frozen in the truck, the tap on the roof echoing in my skull. The diner's lights are a beacon, but I can't move. Sable's growling, her fur bristling. I tell myself to breathe, to think. I could run for the diner, but that means leaving the truck, facing whatever's out there. The tap comes again, slower, like it's mocking me. My mind flashes to the game camera, that jerky figure in the dark. This isn't just scary, it's a nightmare, real and breathing down my neck. I grip the rifle, decide to make a break for it. It's my only shot. I shove the door open, Sable leaping out with me. The cold air hits like a slap, the parking lot dark beyond the diner's glow. I sprint, rifle in one hand, Sable's leash in the other. The hum's back, loud, vibrating through the ground. Something moves to my left, fast, too fast. I don't look, just run, my boots pounding gravel. The diner's door is feet away when Sable yelps, her leash yanking back. I turn, and she's gone, the leash limp in my hand. The horror crashes over me. She's all I have. I scream her name, swinging the rifle around. The lot's empty, but the hum's everywhere, like a swarm. I backed toward the diner, heart pounding, tears stinging my eyes. I should have stayed in the truck, should have driven to Columbus. My mistake was thinking I could outrun this. I bang on the diner's door, but it's locked. Lights on, but no one's there. The hum grows louder, closer. I turn, see it. Tall, thin, eyes glinting in the shadows. It's not human, not animal. It's wrong, and it's coming for me. I fire the rifle, the shot deafening, but the thing doesn't flinch. It moves, jerky and fast, vanishing into the dark. My hands shake, reloading, as I back against the diner's wall. I'm trapped. No truck, no Sable, no help. The hum's in my head now, drowning everything. I think of Mara, Lyle, my old life. Why did I leave? I slide down the wall, rifle across my lap, waiting. The thing's out there, circling, and I know it's not done with me. The air shifts, colder, heavier. I hear footsteps, not the things, but human, crunching gravel. A man steps into the light, grizzled, wearing a tattered coat. It's Amos from the hardware store. He's holding a shotgun, his eyes wild. "You shouldn't be here," he says, voice low. I stammer about the thing, Sable, but he cuts me off. "You brought it out. You stayed too long." His words hit like a gut punch. The horror's not just the creature. It's me, my choice to live out there. Amos tells me to follow him, says he knows a place to hide. I don't trust him, but I'm out of options. We move through the lot, the hum fading but never gone. He leads me to an old shed behind the diner, damp and smelling of rust. Inside, he locks the door, muttering about keeping it out. I ask about Sable, but he shakes his head. My chest aches. She's gone, and it's my fault. I should have left weeks ago, when the traps broke, when the scratches started. We sit in the dark, Amos clutching his shotgun. He talks in whispers, says the hills have always had things older than the trees. He saw one years ago, lost his brother to it. I want to call him crazy, but I've seen it too. The hum starts again, faint, outside the shed. Amos grips my arm, his eyes wide with terror. "Don't move," he hisses. But I can't stay still. I need to find Sable to fix this. I stand, rifle ready, and reach for the door. Amos grabs me, but I shake him off. I step outside, the night swallowing me. The hum's louder, the air thick with that rotting smell. I call for Sable, my voice breaking. Something moves, fast, and I fire, the shot wild. The thing's on me before I can reload. Its weight crushing, its breath hot and foul. I swing the rifle, but it's too strong. My last thought is of Mara, her warning, my stupid pride. The world goes black, the hum deafening. I don't know if I'm dead or dreaming, but I'm cold, lying in the dirt. The thing's gone, but so's Amos, the shed, everything. I'm back in the forest, near my cabin, the air heavy with that same disturbing weight. Sable's leash is in my hand, but she's not there. The hum's faint, always there, like a heartbeat in the hills. I was wrong to come here, to think I could live this way. The tragedy is mine, and it's not over. The wind howls through the pines, rattling the windows of my cabin in the Wayne National Forest, Ohio. I'm Verna Hollis, 42 years old, and this is my sanctuary, a rickety wooden haven I built to escape the chaos of Athens. Back there, it was all deadlines and noise. Teaching at the university wore me thin. Now, it's just me, my chickens, and my old radio for company. My brother, Cal, 38, and his wife, Dinah, live an hour away in Marietta. They think I'm crazy for going off-grid, but they don't get it. I needed quiet, space to breathe, to grow my own food, and live simply. The cabin's small but sturdy, with a wood stove that keeps me warm and a loft for my bed. I've got a garden out back, carrots, kale, potatoes, and 6 chickens that give me eggs daily. The forest smells like damp moss and freedom, though the isolation hits hard sometimes. I've got a shotgun for protection, mostly for coyotes or the occasional snake. Cal taught me to shoot years ago, though I'm rusty. The nearest town, Nelsonville, is a 30-minute drive, where I stock up on flour, seeds, and gossip from the locals. Night settles fast here, the trees swallowing the last of the daylight. I'm sipping tea, the radio crackling with some old country tune. My chickens are quiet in their coop, locked up tight. I learned my lesson after losing one to a fox last month. Stupid mistake, leaving the latch loose. The forest is alive at night, full of hoots and rustles, but I'm used to it. Still, tonight feels heavier, like the air's holding a secret. I brush it off, blame the spooky radio static. I've been here 8 months, and it's not all smooth sailing. The first week, I nearly burned the cabin down trying to light the stove, smoke everywhere, coughing like a fool. Cal laughed when I told him, said I'd learn. He's right. I'm tougher now, hands calloused from chopping wood. Dinah sends me texts when I'm in town, begging me to visit. I miss them, but this is my life now, my choice. The solitude's worth it, mostly. The radio cuts out, leaving silence that's too thick. I tap it, but it's dead. Batteries, probably. I grab a lantern. Its glow soft against the cabin's rough walls. The chickens cluck faintly, probably dreaming of worms. I smile, but it fades fast. Something's off, like the forest gone quiet, holding its breath. I tell myself it's nothing, just the night playing tricks. Still, I check the shotgun, make sure it's loaded. I step outside to check the coop, the air crisp and sharp. The stars are bright, but the trees feel too close, like they're leaning in. I shine the lantern around, see nothing but shadows. Back in Athens, I'd be grading papers, stressed out. Here, every creak feels personal, but I love it, usually. Tonight, though, the quiet's disturbing, like something's watching from the dark. I shake my head, call myself jumpy. Back inside, I lock the door, double-check the windows. The chickens are fine, but my gut's twisting. I think of those old Ohio tales, lost hunters, strange lights in the woods. Just stories, right? I laugh, but it's forced. I set the shotgun by the table, sip my tea. The lantern flickers, casting jittery shadows. I'm not scared, not really. This is my home, my rules. But that heavy feeling lingers, like a storm brewing. I stoke the fire, the crackle comforting. The radio's still dead, so I hum to fill the silence. My mind drifts to Cal and Dinah, their cozy house, their normal life. Maybe I'll visit soon. For now, I'm here, just me and the forest. I glance at the door, the lock solid. Everything's fine, I tell myself. But deep down, I'm not so sure. Something scratches outside, faint but sharp, like nails on wood. I freeze, my heart kicking up. Probably just a branch, I think, but I grab the shotgun anyway. The night's too still, too wrong. I'm not paranoid, but I'm not dumb either. I sit, listening, waiting, the cabin suddenly feeling smaller than ever. Dawn creeps through the pines, gray and chilly. I'm outside, feeding the chickens, their cluck's a small comfort. But the coop's a mess. One of the latches is bent, like something tried to pry it open. Not a fox, not with those deep, jagged scratches. My stomach twists, a creepy feeling settling in. I tell myself it's just an animal, maybe a raccoon with too much attitude. Still, it's unsettling, like the forest is pushing back. I fix the latch with a hammer, my hands clumsy from the cold. Back in Athens, I'd ignore this, but out here, every little thing feels like a warning. I check the garden next, and it's worse. Half my kale is trampled, stalks snapped clean. No animal eats like that. It's deliberate, like someone stomped through just to mess with me. The horror of it prickles my skin. I grab my phone, snap a picture, thinking I'll show Cal when I visit. But the signal's spotty, and the battery's low. I decide to head to Nelsonville for supplies and maybe some advice. The locals know these woods better than I do, even if they treat me like an outsider. The drive's rough, the dirt road muddy from last night's drizzle. My old Jeep rattles, and I keep glancing in the rear view, half expecting something to dart out. My mind's playing tricks, flashing to that creepy coop latch. I laugh it off, but my grip's tight on the wheel. In town, the general store's quiet. The cashier, a wiry woman named Faye, raises an eyebrow when I mention the scratches. Wood's got their own rules, she says, her voice low. It's disturbing, like she's hinting at something I'm not ready to hear. I buy wire for the coop, some batteries, and extra shotgun shells. Faye's words stick with me, making the drive back feel longer. I'm almost home when I spot it, a weird bundle of sticks by the road, tied with twine, like some kind of marker. It wasn't there yesterday. My heart skips, the kind of dread you feel in a scary movie when the music slows. I stop, snap a photo, but I don't touch it. Something about it feels wrong, like it's not meant for me to mess with. Back at the cabin, I reinforce the coop, weaving wire through the latches. The chickens are edgy, pecking at the ground like they sense trouble. I'm sweating despite the chill, my mind on that stick bundle. I decide to set up a motion light by the coop. Should have done it months ago. I'm no electrician, so it takes forever, wires tangling like my nerves. The forest's too quiet today, no birds, just a heavy stillness that's starting to feel like a horror show. I try calling Cal, needing to hear his voice, but the signal's dead again. Last time we talked, he teased me about going feral. Now, I wish I'd told him about the weird stuff sooner. I text Dinah instead, but it doesn't send. The isolation's hitting hard, making the cabin feel like a trap. I check the shotgun, load it carefully. The scratches, the trampled garden, Faye's cryptic warning. They're piling up, making my off-grid dream feel shaky. Night falls, and I'm jumpy, double-checking the locks. The motion lights up, but it's flickering, like the wiring's bad. I curse my shoddy work, another mistake. I'm eating cold stew when the chickens start clucking, loud and frantic. I grab the shotgun, heart pounding, and step onto the porch. The light's on, illuminating the coop, but something's moving just beyond it. Tall, hunched, gone in a blink. My blood runs cold, the terror creeping in. I yell into the dark, "Get out of here!" My voice shakes, sounding small. No answer, just the chicken's panicked clucks. I shine the flashlight, see nothing but trees. But then I spot it, another stick bundle, right by the coop, twine knotted tight. It's fresh, like someone placed it while I was in town. The horror sinks deeper. This isn't animals. Someone, or something, is out there, watching me. I back inside, lock the door, and sit by the fire, shotgun across my lap. The chickens quiet down, but the silence is worse, heavy and wrong. I'm starting to think coming out here was a bad call, but I'm too stubborn to run. Not yet. I tell myself I'll figure it out tomorrow, maybe check the woods for tracks. But deep down, I know whatever's out there isn't just passing through. It's here for me. I'm up at first light, my eyes burning from a sleepless night. The chickens are quiet, but the coop's latch has been again, worse this time, like something tried to rip it off. My heart's pounding as I check the motion light. It's smashed, wires dangling like guts. The horror hits hard. This isn't some raccoon or prank. I grab my shotgun, hands shaky, and scan the trees. The stick bundle by the coop is still there, but now there's a new one, closer to the cabin, twine knotted in a way that feels too deliberate. It's disturbing, like a message I can't read. I kick it apart, but my gut screams I've made a mistake. I decide to check the woods for tracks, shotgun in hand. The forest is dead silent. No birds, no wind, just my boots crunching leaves. I find footprints, bare, human-like, but too long, toes weirdly splayed. My mind flashes to those creepy Ohio legends, like the Grassman stories from around here. I shake it off, but the prints are real, leading deeper into the trees. The terror's creeping in, like I'm walking into a scary movie set. I follow them, stupidly, telling myself I need answers. The air smells wrong, like damp earth and something sour. Half a mile in, I find a clearing, and my blood runs cold. There's a circle of stick bundles, maybe a dozen, arranged like a ritual. In the center, a pile of bones, small, like my chickens, but some look wrong, too big for birds. My stomach lurches, the horror overwhelming. I back away, shotgun up, but something moves behind me, fast and heavy. I spin, see nothing, but the air's thicker now, like it's pressing down. I'm not alone, and whatever's out here isn't just watching anymore. Back at the cabin, I board up the windows, my hands trembling so bad I drop nails. The chickens are hiding in their coop, silent, like they know something I don't. I try the radio again, nothing but static. My phone's still dead, no signal, no way to call Cal or Dinah. The isolation's suffocating, making the cabin feel like a coffin. I'm starting to regret every choice that brought me here. Those footprints, those bones, they're not random. Something's playing with me, and it's close. Night falls, and the motion light's useless, just a broken husk. I'm inside, shotgun loaded, sitting by the fire. The chickens start clucking, frantic, then stop all at once. My heart's racing, the silence worse than any noise. Then I hear it, a low, rasping whisper, like words but not quite, coming from the trees. It's not human, not animal. The terror's real now, clawing at my chest. I grip the shotgun, tell myself to stay calm, but my hands are slick with sweat. The whisper grows louder, circling the cabin, like it's testing the walls. I yell, "Leave me alone," but my voice cracks, sounding pathetic. The whispering stops, replaced by a slow, deliberate knock on the door, 3 times, then silence. My mind screaming, picturing those splayed footprints, that bone pile. I check the locks, the boards, everything. The cabin's secure, but it doesn't feel like it. Something's out there, and it wants in. I move to the loft, hoping the height gives me an edge. The whispering starts again, closer, like it's right outside the walls. The chickens are silent, and I'm terrified they're gone. I think of Cal, his warnings about living out here alone. I should have listened, should have visited Marietta. The knocks come again, harder, shaking the door. I aim the shotgun, my finger twitching, but I don't shoot. I don't know what's out there, and that's the worst part. The air's heavy now, like a storm's brewing inside the cabin. I hear a new sound, scratching, slow and deliberate, along the roof. It's not random, not branches. It's moving, circling, like it's looking for a way in. My heart's in my throat, the horror's suffocating. I whisper to myself, "You're okay, Verna." But it's a lie. Something's very wrong, and it's not just in the woods. It's here, with me. The scratching stops, but now there's a thump, heavy on the porch. The whole cabin shakes, dust sifting from the beams. I'm frozen, shotgun aimed at the door, waiting for whatever's next. The whispering's back, louder, like a chant I can't understand. It's not just one voice. There's more, overlapping, surrounding me. I'm not sure what's out there, but it's not leaving. It's hunting, and I'm the prey. The thump on the porch snaps me out of my paralysis, my heart slamming against my ribs. The whispering's louder, a chorus of rasping voices circling the cabin. I'm clutching the shotgun, crouched in the loft, but the cabin feels like a trap. I can't stay here, not with those things outside. The horror's choking me, but I force myself to think. My Jeep's parked out front, maybe 30 yards away. If I can get to it, I can drive to Nelsonville, find help. I grab my pack, stuff it with shells, a flashlight, and my knife. The chickens are silent, probably gone, and that thought cuts deep. I creep down the ladder, shotgun ready, my breath shallow. The whispering's right outside now, like it's seeping through the walls. I peek through a crack in the boarded window, nothing but darkness, but I feel eyes on me, that same disturbing weight from the first night. I whisper to myself, "Move, Verna," and inch toward the door. The knocks come again, slow and heavy, shaking the frame. My hands shake, but I unlatch the door, heart pounding. I have to run now. I fling the door open, shotgun up, and bolt for the Jeep. The night's a blur of shadows, the air thick with that sour, rotting smell. The whispering turns to a hiss, sharp and close, like it's right behind me. I don't look back, just sprint, my boots slipping on the damp ground. The Jeep's close, keys in my pocket, but something moves to my left, tall, hunched, too fast. The terror's overwhelming, like a scary movie I can't pause. I reach the Jeep, yank the door open, and dive in, slamming it shut. I fumble the keys, my hands slick with sweat. The engine sputters, and for one horrible second, I think it won't start. The hissing's louder, circling the Jeep, and something scrapes the roof, slow and deliberate. I scream, "Come on," and the engine roars to life. I hit the gas, tires spinning, headlights slicing through the dark. Something darts across the path, lanky, wrong, eyes glinting like coins. I swerve, barely missing it, my heart in my throat. The road to Nelsonville's rough, but I floor it, praying I make it. The forest blurs past, branches clawing at the Jeep. The hissing fades, but I'm not safe yet. My mind's racing, replaying that clearing, those bones, the stick bundles. I think of Cal, his warnings about the woods. Why didn't I listen? The gas gauge is low, stupid, I forgot to fill up in town. Nelsonville's lights are a faint glow ahead, but the hissing's back, faint, like it's keeping pace. I grip the wheel, telling myself I'm almost there, but the horror's still with me, heavy and real. I hit the town limits, the streetlight's a weak comfort. The gas station's open, a flickering neon sign. I pull in, hands trembling, shotgun across my lap. The lot's empty, but I feel watched, like those things followed me. I check the mirrors, nothing. Still, I'm not getting out yet. The terror's too raw, my breath coming in gasps. I think about calling Cal, but my phone's still dead. The gas station clerk's inside, staring out, his face pale. I wonder if he knows what's out there. I force myself to step out, shotgun in hand, and start pumping gas. The night's too quiet, the hissing gone, but the air's still heavy. I'm halfway done when I hear it, a low, rasping whisper coming from the trees across the road. My blood freezes. I spin, shotgun up, but see nothing. The clerk's still watching, his eyes wide, like he's seen this before. I finish fueling, jump back in the Jeep, and lock the doors. The whispering's closer, like it's in the lot now, circling. I'm about to peel out when something slams into the Jeep's side, rocking it hard. I scream, the shotgun slipping from my hands. The whispering's deafening, a chorus of voices that aren't human. I grab the gun, my hands shaking, and floor it, the Jeep lurching forward. The road's clear, but I feel it. Whatever's out there isn't done. Nelsonville's close, but the gas station's lights are fading in the rear view, and the whispering's still with me, like a shadow I can't shake. I pull into a motel parking lot, the neon sign buzzing. The clerk inside looks half asleep, but I don't care. I need walls, people, anything but the woods. I grab the shotgun, my pack, and stumble out, my legs weak. The whispering's faint now, but it's there, lurking. I bang on the motel door, my voice hoarse, begging to be let in. The clerk opens it, but his eyes flick to the dark behind me, like he sees something I don't. I'm not safe, not yet. Inside the motel, the clerk locks the door behind me, his hands shaky. The room smells like stale coffee and mildew, but it's better than the woods. I'm clutching the shotgun, my heart still racing. The whispering's gone, but the horror lingers, like a stain. I ask the clerk, a guy named Roy, if he's heard anything weird out there. He nods, says folks talk about things in the forest, old stories nobody believes, until they do. His voice is low, like he's scared to say too much. I think of those bones, the footprints, and my stomach twists. I try my phone again, no signal. I need to call Cal, tell him I'm alive, but the motel's landline is dead too. Roy says storms mess with the lines sometimes. I don't buy it. This feels deliberate, like the woods are cutting me off. The terror's eating at me, making every creak of the motel floor feel like a threat. I ask Roy to stay close, but he's edgy, keeps glancing at the windows. I made a mistake coming out here, thinking I could handle the wild alone. I sit on the bed, shotgun across my lap, trying to piece it together. Those stick bundles, the whispers, the thing in the woods, it's not random. Roy mutters about locals who've gone missing, hunters mostly, out near my cabin. He says some think it's a cult, others say it's older, something that's always been here. My mind flashes to the Grassman tales, but this feels worse, more real. The horror's not just out there, it's in me now, in every shadow, every sound. I should have stayed in Athens, safe with my books and classes. Roy offers me coffee, but I can't drink, my hands won't stop shaking. He says he'll check the back, make sure the doors are locked. I nod, but the second he's gone, the whispering starts again, faint, outside the window. My heart stops. I grip the shotgun, creep to the curtain, and peek out. Nothing but the parking lot, my Jeep sitting alone. Then I see it. A stick bundle, right by the Jeep, twine knotted tight. It wasn't there when I parked. The terror's back, choking me. I yell for Roy, but he doesn't answer. The whispering's louder, like it's inside the walls now. I back away from the window, shotgun aimed, my breath ragged. The door rattles, slow and deliberate, like someone's testing it. I scream, "Who's there?" but get no reply, just that rasping hiss. I made a mistake trusting this place, thinking walls could keep it out. The rattling stops, but now there's scratching, slow, along the roof. It's here, and it's not leaving. I decide to run, grab my pack, and head for the door. The whispering's a roar now, voices overlapping, not human. I fling the door open, shotgun up, and freeze. Roy's on the ground outside, eyes wide, throat torn open. Blood pools around him, black in the neon light. The horror's overwhelming, my legs weak. I stumble back, slamming the door, but the scratching's on it now, clawing, relentless. I'm trapped. No Jeep, no help, just me and whatever's out there. I back into the room, shotgun shaking in my hands. The whispering's inside now, like it's coming from the walls, the floor, everywhere. I think of Cal, Dinah, my chickens, everything I've lost. My mistake was staying too long, ignoring the signs. The door buckles, wood splintering, and I fire, the shot deafening. Something screeches, inhuman, but the scratching doesn't stop. It's coming through, and I'm out of time. I scramble to the bathroom, lock the door, knowing it won't hold. The whispering's in my head now, drowning out everything. I slide down the wall, shotgun useless, tears streaming. I should have listened to Cal, should have left when the coop broke. The door shakes, the screeching louder, and I know it's over. My last thought is of Athens, my old life, safe and boring. The tragedy's mine, and it's final. The door splinters, and the world goes black, the whispering swallowing me whole. I'm gone, lost to the woods, to whatever's been hunting me. The forest keeps its secrets, and I'm one of them now. Another story nobody will believe. The air's crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth as I sit on the porch of my cabin in Ohio's Zaleski State Forest. I'm Thane Carver, 39 years old, and this is my escape from the grind of Cincinnati. I was a mechanic, always elbow deep in grease, but the city wore me out. Too many horns, too many fights. Out here, it's just me, my tools, and a small garden. My cousin, Rhea, 35, and her kid, Jonah, 12, live in Chillicothe, about an hour away. They think I'm nuts for ditching Wi-Fi and pavement, but this is my shot at peace, living off the land. The cabin's rough, built with my own hands, logs, sweat, and a few curses. No electricity, just a solar panel for basics and a wood stove for heat. I grow beans, squash, and tomatoes, and I've got a rain barrel for water. My shotgun's by the door, a 12 gauge for coyotes or whatever else prowls these hills. Rhea came by once, Jonah trailing her, wide-eyed at the forest. She called it too quiet. Jonah loved it, wanted to stay. I smiled, but I'm glad they left. This life's mine alone. Night's falling, the sky bruising purple. I'm inside, sipping coffee, the stove crackling. My radio's tuned to static, only way to get news out here. The forest hums with life. Crickets, owls, the occasional rustle of deer. I've been here 6 months, and it's not all smooth. Early on, I misjudged a storm, nearly flooded the cabin, water everywhere, mopping for hours. Rhea laughed when I told her, said I'd learn. She's right. I'm tougher now, hands scarred from splitting wood. The nearest town, MacArthur, is a 25-minute drive. I go every couple weeks for supplies. Oil, nails, canned peaches. The locals nod, but I'm still the city guy to them. I don't mind. I came here to be left alone. Still, tonight feels off, like the forest holding its breath. The radio cuts out, just static hissing. I tap it, but it's dead. Probably the batteries, but the silence is heavy, almost creepy. I shrug it off, tell myself I'm just tired. I light a lantern. Its glow soft against the cabin's walls. The garden's doing okay, but last week, something dug up my squash, probably a raccoon. I set traps, simple ones, to keep critters out. I'm no hunter, but the shotgun's loaded, just in case. You hear stories about these hills, lost hikers, weird lights. I don't buy that stuff, but I check the locks anyway. Better safe than sorry, right? I step outside to check the traps, the air cool and sharp. The stars are out, bright as nails, but the trees feel too close, like they're watching. Back in Cincinnati, I'd be wrenching on a car, radio blaring. Here, every snap in the woods feels personal. I shine the flashlight, see nothing but leaves. The traps are empty, but one's got weird scratches, deep and jagged. My gut twists, too big for a raccoon. I tell myself it's nothing, but it's unsettling. Back inside, I lock the door, set the shotgun by the table. The lantern flickers, casting shadows that dance like ghosts. I laugh, call myself jumpy. Rhea'd say I'm reading too many horror novels, got a stack of them by the bed. But that heavy feeling lingers, like the air's got weight. I stoke the fire, the crackle grounding me. Jonah loved this. The kid's all about adventure. Maybe I'll let him visit soon. The night's too quiet now, no crickets, just my own breathing. I check the windows, peer into the dark. Nothing but trees, swaying slow. I'm not scared, not really. This is my place, my rules. Built it from the ground up, my way out of the city's noise. Still, I grab the shotgun, rest it closer. Just in case. Something scratches outside, faint, like a nail on wood. I freeze, my heart kicking up. Probably a branch, I think, but I'm not dumb. I stand, shotgun in hand, and listen. The forest's silent, too silent, and that disturbing feeling's back, stronger now. I'm not sure what's out there, but I'm starting to think I don't want to know. Morning's gray, the air damp as I check the traps around the cabin. One's busted, metal twisted like someone took a crowbar to it. Deep scratches mark the ground nearby, too wide for any animal I know. My stomach knots, a creepy feeling crawling up my spine. I tell myself it's just a bear, maybe, but bears don't bend steel like that. It's disturbing, like the forest sending a message. I reset the trap, my hands unsteady, and head back to the cabin. Back in Cincinnati, I'd shrug this off, but out here, every odd thing feels like a warning. The garden's a mess too. Half my tomatoes are gone, vines snapped clean. Not eaten, just destroyed, like someone wanted to screw with me. The horror of it settles in. This isn't random critter damage. I grab my phone, snap a picture for Rhea, but the signal's dead. First time that's happened. I decide to drive to MacArthur for supplies and maybe some answers. The locals might know what's tearing up my stuff. I'm not spooked, not yet, but I'm not stupid either. I grab the shotgun, just in case. The dirt road to town's muddy, my Jeep bouncing hard. I keep glancing in the rear view, half expecting something to dart out. My mind's stuck on those scratches, that busted trap. It's like a scary movie, but I'm the one in it. I laugh, call myself paranoid, but my hands grip the wheel tight. About halfway, I spot something weird, a pile of rocks by the road, stacked in a way that looks too neat, too deliberate. It wasn't there yesterday. My heart skips, but I keep driving. In MacArthur, the general store is quiet, smelling of dust and coffee. The clerk, an old guy named Walt, squints when I mention the trap and garden. Wood's got their own ways, he says, voice low, like he's sharing a secret. It's creepy, like he knows something I don't. I ask about the rock pile. He goes still, then mutters about checking my locks. I buy wire for the traps, extra shells, and a cheap trail cam. If something's out there, I want proof. Back at the cabin, I set up the trail cam by the garden, my hands sweaty despite the chill. The forest feels heavier today, the air thick. I reinforce the traps with wire, hoping it holds. The rock pile's stuck in my head, like those old Ohio stories Rhea used to tell Jonah, about strange folks in the hills, leaving signs. I shake it off, but the thought lingers. I try calling Rhea, needing her voice, but the phone's still dead. The isolation's starting to feel like a cage. Night comes fast, and I'm jumpy, double-checking the locks. The trail cam's blinking, but I won't check it till morning. I'm eating beans when I hear it, a low, throaty hum, like a voice, but not quite, coming from the trees. My heart kicks up, the sound unsettling in a way I can't explain. I grab the shotgun, step onto the porch, and shine the flashlight. Nothing but shadows. I yell, "Who's out there?" But get no answer, just that hum, fainter now. I'm back inside, shotgun close, the fire crackling but doing little to calm me. The hum's gone, but the silence is worse, heavy and wrong. I think of Jonah, how he'd love the adventure of this, but I'm glad he's safe in Chillicothe. Walt's warning, the rock pile, the busted trap, it's all piling up, making my off-grid life feel like a horror show. I check the windows, the board's solid, but I'm not so sure they'll hold. The night's too still, no owls, no wind. I'm sitting by the stove, shotgun across my lap, when the hum starts again, closer, like it's right outside. My hands shake, the terror creeping in. I tell myself it's just the woods, maybe a bobcat or something. But deep down, I know better. Those scratches, that hum, it's not natural. I decide to check the trail cam at dawn, get some answers. For now, I'm stuck, watching the door. Something taps the cabin wall, slow and deliberate, like a knuckle on wood. My blood runs cold. I grip the shotgun, heart pounding, and listen. The tap comes again, then stops. The hum's back, louder, circling the cabin. I'm not imagining this. Something's out there, and it's not just passing through. It's watching, waiting, and I'm starting to think I made a big mistake coming out here. I'm up before dawn, my hands shaky as I grab the trail cam's memory card. The hum from last night's still in my head, that creepy, throaty sound that wasn't human. I pop the card into my old laptop, heart pounding. The footage is dark, grainy, but there's something tall, too thin, moving through the garden with a jerky gait. It pauses, turns toward the camera, eyes glinting like glass. My stomach drops, the horror hitting like a brick. This isn't a bear or a prank. It's something else, something wrong. I slam the laptop shut, my breath ragged, and clutch the shotgun. Outside, the garden's worse. More vines snapped, and another rock pile's appeared, right by the cabin steps. The stones are stacked tight, like someone spent hours on it. My mind flashes to those creepy Ohio tales, like the Loveland Frogman, but this feels darker, more real. The terror is sinking in, making my skin crawl. I check the traps. Another one's twisted, metal bent like tinfoil. Whatever did this is strong, and it's not scared of me. I snap a picture of the rocks, my hands trembling. I head into the woods, shotgun ready, looking for tracks. The forest's too quiet. No birds, just a heavy stillness that's disturbing. I find footprints, bare, human-like, but too long, toes splayed in a way that's not right. They lead toward a ravine, and my gut screams to turn back, but I need to know. The air smells off, like rot and rust. Halfway down, I spot another rock pile, bigger, with something tied to it. A scrap of cloth, stained dark. The horror's real now, clawing at my chest. Back at the cabin, I board up the windows tighter, nails slipping from my sweaty hands. The shotgun's loaded, but it feels useless against whatever's out there. My phone's still dead. No way to call Rhea or Jonah. The isolation's crushing, like the forest's closing in. I think of Walt's warning, those rock piles, and that thing on the camera. This isn't just a bad night. It's a nightmare, and I'm stuck in it. I decide to stay inside, keep the fire going, and wait for daylight. Night falls, and the cabin feels like a trap. The hum's back, louder, circling outside like a pack of wolves. I'm sitting by the stove, shotgun across my lap, when the chickens start clucking wildly, then stop, dead silent. My heart's racing, the silence worse than any noise. I creep to a window, peek through a crack. Something moves near the garden, tall and jerky, just like the footage. The terror's suffocating, making my hands shake. I grip the shotgun tighter, finger on the trigger. The hum turns to a low, guttural chant, like voices overlapping, not quite human. It's coming from all sides, like I'm surrounded. I yell, "Get out of here," but my voice is weak, swallowed by the dark. The chanting stops, replaced by a slow knock on the door, 3 times, deliberate. My mind screaming, picturing those footprints, that stained cloth. I check the locks, the boards, but they feel flimsy. Something's out there, and it's not just watching anymore. I back away from the door, shotgun aimed, sweat stinging my eyes. The knocks come again, harder, shaking the frame. The chanting's back, louder, like it's inside the walls. I think of Rhea, Jonah, how I should have visited them, left this place. My mistake was thinking I could handle the wild alone. The air's heavy, like a storm's brewing inside the cabin. Something scratches the roof, slow and deliberate, like it's looking for a way in. The scratching moves to the walls, circling, relentless. I'm frozen, shotgun up, waiting for the next move. The chanting's deafening, vibrating in my bones. I whisper to myself, "You're okay, Thane," but it's a lie. Something heavy thumps on the porch, shaking the whole cabin. Dust falls from the beams, and my heart stops. This isn't a prank or an animal. It's something else, something that doesn't belong here. The thump comes again, closer, like it's testing the door. The chanting's in my head now, drowning out everything. I'm not sure what's out there, but it's not leaving. It's hunting, and I'm the target. The horror's overwhelming, and I'm starting to think I've made a terrible mistake staying here. The thump on the porch jolts me, my heart hammering so hard it hurts. The chanting's a roar now, vibrating through the cabin walls. Not human, not animal, just wrong. I'm gripping the shotgun, crouched by the stove, but this place feels like a coffin. I can't stay, not with that thing outside, circling, knocking. The horror's choking me, but I force myself to move. I grab my pack, shove in shells, a flashlight, and my knife. The Jeep's my only shot, 30 yards to freedom, to MacArthur, to people. I take a shaky breath, whisper, "Come on, Thane," and head for the door. I crack the door open, shotgun ready, the night swallowing the lantern's glow. The air's thick, reeking of rot, and something sharp, like metal. The chanting's louder, coming from the trees, and I feel eyes on me, that disturbing weight from the first night. I bolt, boots slipping on the damp ground, the Jeep's outline barely visible. Something moves to my right, tall, jerky, too fast. My stomach lurches, the terror raw, but I don't stop. I reach the Jeep, yank the door open, and dive in, slamming it shut. My hands shake, fumbling the keys. The engine sputters, and for one horrible second, I think I'm stuck. The chanting's right outside, a hiss that crawls under my skin. Something scrapes the Jeep's roof, slow and deliberate, like nails on a chalkboard. I scream, "Start! Damn it!" And the engine roars to life. I hit the gas, tires spinning in the mud, headlights cutting through the dark. A shadow darts across the path, lanky, eyes glinting like knives. I swerve, my heart in my throat, and keep going. The road to MacArthur a blurry lifeline. The forest blurs past, branches clawing at the Jeep. The chanting fades, but I'm not safe. My mind's stuck on that trail cam footage, those rock piles, the stained cloth. I think of Rhea, Jonah, how I should have listened to their warnings. The gas gauge is low, stupid mistake, not filling up. MacArthur's lights flicker ahead, but the chanting's back, faint, like it's trailing me. The horror's still there, heavy in my chest, like a scary movie I can't escape. I grip the wheel, praying I make it. I hit the town limits, street lights washing over me like a weak shield. The diner's open, neon sign buzzing. I pull in, hands trembling, shotgun across my lap. The lot's empty, but I feel watched, like those things followed me. I check the mirrors, nothing. The diner's glow feels safe, but my gut says it's not. I think of Walt's cryptic words, the local stories about missing hunters. Was this what they faced? I'm not getting out yet. The terror's too fresh, my breath ragged. I decide to head for the gas station instead, needing fuel to keep going, maybe to Chillicothe, to Rhea's. I pull out, the road quiet, but the air's heavy, like a storm's brewing. At the station, the clerk's inside, a kid barely 20, staring at his phone. I start pumping gas, shotgun close, my eyes scanning the dark. The chanting's gone, but I hear something, a low tap on the Jeep's hood, deliberate, like a finger on glass. My blood freezes. I spin, see nothing, but the horror's back, clawing at me. I finish fueling, jump back in, and lock the doors. The tap comes again, harder, on the roof. My heart's pounding, the shotgun shaking in my hands. I yell, "Leave me alone," but the night's silent, mocking me. The clerk's still inside, oblivious. I think about running to him, but the dark between the Jeep and the station feels alive, waiting. I start the engine, ready to peel out, but something slams into the side, rocking the Jeep. The terror's overwhelming, and I know I'm not safe. I floor it, the Jeep lurching forward, MacArthur's lights fading behind me. The road to Chillicothe's long, and the gas is barely enough. The tapping's gone, but I feel it. Whatever's out there isn't done. I think of Jonah, his wide-eyed love for adventure, and how I'd never let him near this place now. The chanting starts again, faint, in the distance, like it's pacing me. I'm almost to the highway when I see it. A rock pile, right in the road, stacked tight. It wasn't there before. I swerve, tires screeching, and keep going, my hands slick with sweat. The chanting's louder, vibrating through the Jeep. I'm close to Chillicothe, but the forest feels like it's stretching, pulling me back. I tell myself I'll make it, that I'll see Rhea and Jonah, but the horror's heavy, like a weight on my chest. Something's out there, hunting, and I'm not sure I can outrun it. I'm on the outskirts of Chillicothe, the city's lights a faint promise. The chanting's still with me, low and relentless, like it's burrowed into my head. I'm gripping the shotgun, the Jeep rattling as I push it hard. My mistake was staying in that cabin, ignoring the signs, the busted traps, the rock piles, that thing on the camera. The horror's real now, a living thing that won't let go. I think of Rhea, Jonah, their safe little house. I should have gone to them weeks ago, before this nightmare started. I pull into a truck stop, the lot lit by harsh fluorescence. A few rigs are parked, drivers inside sipping coffee. I park near the entrance, shotgun in hand, my breath shaky. The chanting's faint, but it's there, lurking in the dark beyond the lights. I step out, legs wobbly, and head for the door. The clerk, a burly guy named Gus, nods but eyes the shotgun warily. I mutter about car trouble, not ready to spill the truth. He offers coffee, but I'm too wired, the terror's still clawing at me. Inside, the diner's warm, but I feel exposed, like the windows are too big. I try my phone. No signal, still dead. Gus says the lines are down, happens sometimes out here. I don't believe him. It's too convenient, like the forest is cutting me off. I ask about motels, somewhere to crash, but my gut says nowhere's safe. The chanting's back, louder, coming from the lot. I glance out, see nothing, but there's a new rock pile by the Jeep, twine wrapped tight around it. My heart stops. This thing followed me. I tell Gus I'm leaving, But he grabs my arm, eyes wide. "Don't go out there," he says, voice low. He's heard the stories. Missing drivers, strange piles in the woods. The horror is sinking deeper, like I'm trapped in a scary movie with no end. I shake him off, needing to move, to get to Ria's. I head for the Jeep, shotgun ready, but the chanting's deafening now, a chorus of voices that aren't human. Something moves in the shadows, tall and jerky, just like the footage. I reach the Jeep, but the door's stuck, like something's holding it. I yank harder, panic rising, and it opens. I dive in, lock it, and start the engine. The chanting's inside the Jeep now, vibrating in my skull. I glance in the rear view. Eyes glint back, right behind me. I scream, swing the shotgun, but hit nothing. The thing's gone, but the horror's overwhelming, my hands shaking so bad I can barely drive. I made a mistake thinking I could escape. I peel out, heading for Ria's, the road a blur. The chanting's relentless, and the gas light's on. Another stupid mistake. I'm blocks from her house when something slams into the Jeep, hard, flipping it. I'm tumbling, glass shattering, the world spinning. Pain shoots through me, the shotgun gone, my head swimming. The chanting's louder, closer, as I crawl from the wreck, blood in my eyes. I see it, tall, thin, eyes like knives, coming for me. I stagger to my feet, screaming for help, but the street's empty. The thing's on me, its breath hot and foul, claws digging into my arm. I swing, hit nothing but air. My mind screaming, Ria, Jonah, my old life. I should have stayed in Cincinnati, safe in the noise. The thing screeches, a sound that tears through me, and I'm down, the pavement cold. The chanting swallows everything, and I know I'm done. I'm on the ground, the world fading, the thing looming over me. The horror's total, a weight I can't shake. My last thought is of Jonah, his grin, how I promised to take him camping. My mistake was thinking I could live out there, alone in those hills. The tragedy's mine, and it's final. Another story lost to the forest, another name nobody will remember. The darkness closes in, the chanting all I hear, and I'm gone, swallowed by whatever's been hunting me. The woods keep their secrets, and I'm one of them now.